author's chair is one of the most exciting components in writing workshop. Today, I'm going to give you some top tips in 2019 about how to incorporate author's chair into your homeschool classroom or your traditional classroom. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Rebecca with Cherished Children Ministries. So big fun slippers, a tall hat, sitting in the teacher's high cushion chair, a toy microphone in hand, and all eyes on the reader. What is this? This is what one author's chair might look like. Another might be as simple as having the author stand up while the classmates or siblings are sitting and listening attentively. This usually happens within the last 15 to 20 minutes of your writing block. However, you do not have to be confined to this. When I had 28 kids in my classroom, it was a good week when all my students were able to share on his or her designated day. But when I homeschool my kids, they can share on a daily basis. Whatever style you choose is what is best for you and your own children. It will be successful and you will love it as much as your kids do. But there are some things that you need to do before you get started to make sure that you have success. It is easiest to do this in the beginning of your school year when you are organizing and establishing your routines and procedures in your homeschool or in your traditional classroom. The key is to ensure that the author is given the respect and the attention needed. Okay, so you've read aloud. You have modeled the strategy for the key quality or the skill in front of your students or your children. You have conferenced with a few of your children, and you have about 10 to 15 minutes left of your designated writing time. Now it's time for the kid to share their shiny new things. You want them to share what they have. Some goals for author's chair are all children should be focused on the author, listening attentively while he or she is reading. Now, I usually will only have students share what has newly been added since his or her last day sitting in the author's chair. This keeps the student's attention for longer, and we do not have to deal with sayings like, I have already heard this, or we have to hear this again. I have to be very careful that this is not a time that other students who are the audience, that they are not just sitting passively listening and waiting for his or her turn to share their own pieces of writing. I want them to be actively engaged, so I might have them snap when they hear a new word or phrase that the author has incorporated into his or her writing for the day, that they've actually learned it during their spelling or language segment, as I have incorporated that into the writing workshop, and now they are making those connections. For younger students, especially in a traditional classroom, maybe not so much in the homeschool classroom, but for the traditional classroom or kindergarten, first and second graders, I have found it's actually rather difficult to have all of my students sit still and listen attentively while one student is sharing. What I have found actually works best so that all of my students are actively engaged in author's chair, in the author's chair setting, is that we make a sharing rubric or a scoring guide together. We really talk about this and what we want others to be doing while we are the ones sitting in the author's chair. So we discuss it as a class and we clarify 3 to 5 elements that we agree we want to occur during this time. Now for my younger students, I may just use a smiley face for excellent and listening, and maybe a frown or a sad face for not listening. I am attaching a sample of a sharing rubric at the bottom of this video in the description box. It is my job as the classroom teacher or as the mom teacher to lead the conversation. I help my children focus and stay focused during sharing time. The rubric that we make together helps me hold my children accountable and be actively engaged. I always encourage positive dialogue and ask questions like, where did you get your idea for your story? Did you use a mentor text? I might make a comment or a statement such as, Your story reminds me of a time when I went to a friend's birthday party, and we went to a play too. I might give a compliment or even offer a suggestion. My students will observe my comments and eventually learn to do the same thing. Through sharing time, oral language plays a big part in my children's writing. When we discuss together, this allows my children to clarify what they mean. Sometimes if the children are older, maybe grades 3rd, 4th, or 5th, I will ask them to perhaps plan what they want to work on for the following week. When incorporating author's chair into your own homeschool or your own traditional classroom, you allow your children to practice reading aloud in a safe and friendly environment. The important skill of taking turns is developed, and children learn to listen carefully to the author who is sharing. Children learn how to comment positively and receive constructive criticism of any piece. Remember, the author is the author, and he or she can choose to take suggestions or not. They own it. We learn as a community how to share both strengths and weaknesses and focus on what qualities make a really good piece of writing. So the 6 tips for author's chair are: number 1, establish procedures for author's chair. Expectations begin with procedures. This is done best when you as the mom teacher or the classroom teacher are doing mini lessons on each component. And after your kids write independently for a few minutes and you conference with them, you will have your children come together in a circle, or maybe they will sit quietly on a carpet. Maybe they will be outside, or someplace that just works best for you and your needs. The main point is to move where they are normally seated or standing or stretched out, and then move to a different specified location. This is a really great skill to learn in transitions. Everyone will turn to the author and listen carefully. You can schedule your children for a certain day of the week, depending on how large your class is and how many children you have, or what you have scheduled for the day. You can even do this driving together for an appointment or running errands for the day. Remember, minutes matter, so use them wisely. No one child will share multiple times before all children have shared at least once. Number 2, practice appropriate behaviors. I model for my students what appropriate behaviors look like. Pencils and pens are down, all face the author or the reader, and our attention is towards the speaker, showing respect. I also model how to receive positive feedback and or constructive criticism from both classmate and myself as the teacher or the mom teacher. We are a community, and we learn from each other as well as support one another. Together, we create an anchor chart as a reference as to what behaviors we should be using during author's chair and writing workshop. Number 3, I designate a special chair and features of it. Author's chair is a lot more fun and exciting when children get to sit in a special chair or wear a special hat or special shoe. You can use a special teacher chair. You could paint a small rocking chair. Decorate it however you wish. You could also use a director's chair. Anything will work as long as it is special. You will find that even the most reluctant writers want to read aloud in this chair. It is very motivating. Author's chair usually ends too soon because all of the children want to sit in that chair. Number 4, feedback is a very important component for a successful author's chair. I make sure that I give my kids guidance throughout, because we all need to learn how to communicate in an effective and positive manner. I model for my students how to say something in a positive way. I like to use the TAG method. T stands for tell. Tell something that you liked about the author's writing. A stands for ask. Ask a question about the writing that will help the reader improve his or her writing. G is for give a suggestion about how to make the writing better. Again, this is from the key quality I've discussed and I've already modeled in front of my students. Or maybe that means to give a compliment. I do give samples and prompts to guide my kids, especially in the beginning when this is new. I will attach a link of some sample prompts at the bottom of this video in the description box. Just click the link below to get your samples of tags. So for T, tell something you liked. It could be this: I liked the way that your paper begins. It is very interesting because, or I enjoyed the part where, or I like the details that you used to describe, or great job with showing and not telling the part about, Some samples for A. Ask questions could be these. Could you add an example to the part about? Do you think that you could leave this part out because? Would you consider adding a lead to grab the reader's attention? Do you use a checklist after writing? Some examples of G, of give a suggestion or compliment could be, I get confused in the part about. I love your ending. It was so unexpected. I believe I have a stronger alternative for the title. Maybe you could try, you could add more detail in the part about. Your paper is well organized and flows nicely. The vivid details that you used helped me to clearly visualize the actions in the story. Maybe you could explode this one moment instead of having a lot of ideas. I think using a stronger verb for would make your writing even more interesting. Now, since I use the traits of writing with my students, I make sure that I use that language because my children already know the terms. I am using ideas and organization and sentence fluency and word choice and voice and convention. It is easier for my students to give helpful feedback to their peers or their siblings as it is relevant to what we are already learning in class and making more connection. Number 5, I record anecdotal notes. Now, I have talked a little bit about anecdotal notes in some of my other videos about assessment. Basically, this step is not an expectation for students, but it is helpful to me as the classroom teacher or the mom teacher. When the student author is sharing an author's chair, I usually take my writer's notebook with me in which I record my anecdotal notes on. And I just observe while taking a few notes here and there. I like to see if my children are implementing the traits in many lessons that I have taught. If so, I will record that they have done so. Now, I do not take a grade on them. I just like to see if my children are actually making meaning and connection. Essentially, are they enjoying writing while becoming a better writer? I can communicate to the children and to the parents as well as to my own children when I am homeschooling how they are performing whenever I have taken these notes. It makes a really great dialogue and it shows that I really care about their writing and their progress as I have details to share with them what they have done and to show I've actually listened. And number 6, communicate that it is okay to take risks in writing. It is very important to communicate that this is okay and you will not be judged for your risks. Taking risks is a good thing, and depending on the age of your learners, this may be more difficult, especially with shy students and with older students as they become more aware of their surroundings and fitting in. Positive words are of utmost importance. I like to know what my kids are excited about. For example, are they ready to try a new beginning or perhaps a new ending that they have observed in a book that they are reading independently or maybe from a mini lesson that I have shared? I want to know and then encourage them to try it and to take those risks. That is how we become better writers and all around better communicators. I like to make sure that my kids know exactly what is expected of them before we even do it. This helps me as the classroom teacher or the mom teacher for myself and for them to succeed. When we finish author's chair, my kids will place their writing back into their folder. My older kids will read independently, or my younger kids might color or finish some morning work or maybe their homework, while everyone else is moving back into their places. This should only take a few minutes, 1 or 2 minutes at the most. It depends on your setting, whether you are at home or in the classroom. But you just do whatever works best for you to maintain order for you and the structure that you have set. So now it's your turn. Go ahead and give it a try. So recap on the tips for a successful author's chair. Number 1, establish procedures for author's chair. Number 2, practice appropriate behaviors and model for your students what that looks like. Number 3, designate a special chair and features of that chair. It will make it more fun and more exciting. Number 4, give feedback. Feedback is very important, and remember to use the TAG method. Number 5, take some anecdotal notes just to make sure for yourself that your students are actually using the skills that you have taught. And number 6, communicate to your students it is okay to take risks in writing. Well, that's all for today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe below. Thanks for watching.